If you're interested in the O-1 visa, then hopefully this video will be helpful. My name is Fiona McEntee and I've been an immigration attorney for over 16 years and I help people with their O-1 visas. So in this video today, I am going to break down the O-1A criteria and just talk a little bit about what you might need to satisfy each one of those boxes. So this video is all about the O-1A visa, and that's for people who have extraordinary ability in business, science, education, athletics. It's different to the O-1B visa, which is for people with extraordinary ability in the arts or motion picture or TV. So the O-1A has a list of 8 criteria or boxes, right? So the list of 8 that you can potentially check to show that you have extraordinary ability in your field. And ideally, to get the O-1, you're checking at least 3 out of those 8 boxes, or you're showing that you have comparable evidence to meet the boxes. So let's talk about these 8 boxes and what you need to do to show them. Okay, so the first box is showing that you have received nationally or internationally recognized prizes or awards for excellence in the field. The great thing about working on O-1s right now is that the government has updated the policy manual and has given us some specific examples that would satisfy each one of these boxes. So for the awards, the examples that they've given are awards from well-known national institutions and well-known professional associations, certain doctoral dissertation awards and PhD scholarships. That is fantastic, because previously there was some pushback on whether scholastic awards kind of counted as awards for the O-1, and now we know that they have. Another thing that's important is the government is saying that certain awards recognising presentations at nationally or internationally recognised conferences can also satisfy this regulatory criterion. Now, the government does go on to say that while many scholastic awards, so awards that you get as a student, many of them may not have the level of kind of recognition that's needed to check this box, there are some that do rise to the level such that they can be, used to show national or international excellence. And the types of things that the government is looking at is the criteria used for the awards, the national or international significance of it, the number of awardees or prize recipients, and any limitations on eligible competitors. So that's the awards box. And I'll note that it's not enough to be nominated for an award to check this. You need to receive it and in your name. So if you got an award or if you were nominated for an award, that maybe could be featured somewhere else in the case, but maybe not be used to check the awards box. Okay, so that's box number 1. The second is documentation of your membership in associations that require outstanding achievements to join. This is kind of a tricky one because a lot of times you can just pay a membership fee and join the association, and that's not sufficient for this. The government says that certain, the examples are memberships in certain professional associations or fellowships within certain organizations. And we need to break that down further, though, because obviously membership in any professional association is not going to meet this. So we need to see, a little bit more detail about what would qualify. We need to show essentially that your membership required you to be outstanding. And the government acknowledges that certain associations may have multiple levels of membership, and you need to show that to get into whatever tier or whatever committee you were in, that people in your field determined that you were, outstanding or an expert. Now, a specific concrete example that's given is membership in the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, so IEEE. The government says at the IEEE fellow level requires that in part, the nominee must have made accomplishments that have contributed to the field. So there's some kind of info on what's required to get into that level. And nominations are judged by a council of experts and a committee of current fellows. So we know that it's not just getting into the association, there's an assessment process that's going on there. Another example is memberships as a fellow in the Association for the Advancement of Artificial Intelligence, obviously a hot topic right now. Getting into this is based on recognition of a nominee's significant sustained contributions to the field of AI, and it's judged by a panel of current fellows. So something to keep in mind, sometimes we can use memberships in accelerators that have required, significant competition, or where there's significant competition. So that could be something that we could use. So that is the memberships in associations box. Okay, next, the third one is published material in professional or major trade publications or major media. So this is the press category. So to kind of check this box, we need to show that the press is about you and your work. And the government has said that professional or major print publications, newspapers, articles, journals, similar publications, that's kind of what we're looking at. And that professional or online publications can also count. That's like the industry publications. And we can also submit a transcript of professional or major audio or video coverage of your work. If you were interviewed on CNN, for example, we could submit transcript. We would submit maybe the screenshot and perhaps a transcript of the interview. Now, the policy manual says that if there's published material that contains only just like a passing reference, then it's not really considered to be about your work. But importantly, it doesn't need to just be about you. Previously, there was some pushback on this where the government was saying, oh, it's not really about the person because there's other people mentioned. And now the government's saying that you do not need to be the only subject of the material, which is great. And that if the piece includes a broader topic, but also includes a substantial discussion about your work and mentions you, then it could be about you. Now, additionally, it says that the officers may consider material that focuses solely or primarily on work or research being undertaken by a team. So if it's a team effort, that can be counted, provided that the material mentions you in connection with the work or other evidence in the record documents your role in this. So that's important there. And then in evaluating kind of the quality of the publication or whether it's professional, major trade media, the things that we look at are the circulation statistics, readership, viewership. A lot of times these publications will have a press packet available for advertisers, so we can get the circulation statistics, and we need that to show that it's a major trade or a major media publication. Okay, so that is the press category. The next is what we call judging the work of others. If we can show that you have participated on a panel individually on a panel or individually as a judge of work of others in the field, then we can use that to check this box. Examples that are given: if you've been a reviewer of abstract or papers submitted for presentations at scholarly conferences, if you've been a peer reviewer for scholarly publications, if you've been a member of a doctoral dissertation committee or a peer reviewer for government research funding programs. So there's some good examples. They're not exhaustive, so meaning there can be other examples that we can use that are not listed. So if you judged a hackathon or you judged pitch competition, that's not listed there as an example, but I would argue that that meets the criterion. Now we need to show that you've not only been invited to judge, but that you've also actually judged the work. So we would need, evidence of the actual judging and not just the invitation to judge. Okay, that's the judging the work of others. Okay, evidence of the beneficiary's original scientific, scholarly, or business-related contributions of major significance in the field. This is one that we use a lot. And essentially, we need to show kind of two things here. So that your work is original and that it has had a major significance in your field. So examples: published material about the significance of your work, testimonial letters, expert letters, things like that. Documentation that your work has been cited, your original work has been cited at a level that indicates major significance. If you've patents or licenses or other kind of intellectual property, that could be helpful as well. So the government says that if we have evidence that your work was funded, right, so for startups, patented or published, that can potentially demonstrate the originality, but it won't on its own show that it's had major significance to the field, and we need to show both. However, if there's been published research that has provoked widespread commentary on the importance of your work, and documentation that it's been highly cited in relation to other work in the field, that could be important to show. Also, if we have evidence that you developed a patented technology that has attracted significant attention or commercialization, that could establish the significance of your original contribution. Now, if a patent is still pending, we can still use that. It's not on its own going to establish originality, but it would be helpful, I think, just to be used throughout the case. And then the government acknowledges that how we can satisfy this box is by providing detailed expert letters. And for that, we want to establish the credibility of the expert, really showing why the USCIS, why the government should listen to his or her opinion, that they are an expert in the field and it's their opinion, and give specific examples as to how the work is both original and has had major significance. So that's one that we use a lot, the original contributions. Okay, next, evidence of the beneficiary's authorship of scholarly articles in the field in professional journals or major media. Now, this one's really only going to be relevant for people who are writing scholarly articles. And what does scholarly articles means? Well, the government says it should have footnotes, endnotes, bibliography, and may include graphs, charts, videos, things like that. In non-academic arenas, though, the scholarly articles should be written for learned persons in the area. So that's kind of what that means there. So the article must be scholarly, right? So it must report on original research, experimentation, philosophical discourse, generally written by a researcher or expert in the field, often affiliated with the college, university, institution, and normally peer-reviewed. Doesn't have to be, but that's some of the considerations that you look at when you're looking at scholarly articles. And to meet this, the beneficiary must be a listed author of the submitted article, but you don't have to be the sole or the first author. And you also don't need to show that the work has been cited in order to meet this criterion, but obviously citation of your work would be helpful and would also perhaps help in some of the other criteria that we discussed earlier, like the original contributions. And then in evaluating whether the publication is professional publication or a major media, we again look to the intended audience. Is it professional, like journal, things like that, the circulation or readership relative to other media in the field. Okay, so that's the authorship of scholarly articles. Next is evidence that the beneficiary has been employed in a critical or essential capacity for distinguished organizations and establishments. I love this one, and it's one that we use almost, all the time. So again, two-part. We're showing that you've been employed in a critical or essential capacity for distinguished organizations and establishments. It's written in the plural as well. So some specific examples of positions that would kind of satisfy this either critical or essential capacity: senior faculty or senior research position, principal or named investigator for a department, member of a key committee within a distinguished organization. Favorite of mine is the founder, co-founder or contributor of intellectual property to a startup that has a distinguished reputation, or a critical or essential supporting role for a distinguished organization or a distinguished division of an institution. So really, again, we're looking at the critical or essentiality, the essential nature of your role, and then the distinguished nature of the organization. And to show critical, we want to show that you've contributed, in a way that's significantly important to the organization. And to show essential, we want to show that your role is integral to the entity. And the government says that a leadership role often qualifies as either critical or essential. Now, if you're not in a leadership role, you can still also satisfy this. But to do so, we want to show that your role is is or was integral or important to the organization's goals or activities, especially in relation to others in the organization. And it's not the title of the position that is going to be, determinative here. It's really your job duties and what you've done. And this is where detailed letters and expert, testimonial would be also very, very helpful. And also a reminder that we need to focus on the distinguished nature of the organization as well. So how would we show that? Well, if there's press of the company, if the company's been funded as well, the government says specifically for startups that if a business has received significant funding from either a government entity, venture capital funds, angel investors, or other types of funding, that can essentially help to bolster the argument that the company is distinguished. So it's a favorite of mine. It is the critical or essential capacity. And finally, the last one that we can check is to show that you has either commanded a high salary or will command a high salary or other remuneration for services. So noting that it's an either or. So you can in the past have commanded a high salary, or in the future you can be set to command a high salary. Types of evidence that we would use to show past salary would be tax returns, pay statements, other types of contracts, to show the remuneration. And then we could also use contracts, job offers, things like that to show significant remuneration in the future. And also this is kind of a yardstick, because something is only as high if it's higher than something else. So we need to get some data, wage data, regarding what other people are paid in, similar positions in the same geographical location. And if you're outside the US, we'll need some local wage data. If you're in the US, we can get some Department of Labor statistics. And a final thing that I want to note is that the government says that if for founders of startup businesses, if the company has received significant venture capital or other types of funding, we can use that as evidence to support the job offer or contract. So if we're trying to argue that you're going to in the future get significant remuneration, and it's going to be higher than others in the field, and if we have some great VC funding to show that the company will be in a position to pay that, and that's kind of how we would use that as evidence there. So that is a run through of the O-1A criteria. In addition to checking 3 out of the 8 boxes, we also need to have a petitioner and show that you're going to continue to work in your field. I can make some additional videos on those, but this is just a breakdown of how to prove that you have extraordinary ability. If you don't fit neatly into those boxes, it can be possible to argue that there's comparable evidence that, so if we're saying, for example, you're a startup founder, you're bootstrapping, you just don't have funds to pay yourself a big salary, it doesn't really apply to your field, well, then we can potentially use comparable evidence to show that, perhaps your equity is comparable to high salary, like the value of your shares is comparable. And we can kind of do that for the rest of the criteria if it's a thing that you don't fit neatly into there. Hopefully this is helpful. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below and get in touch with us at McEntee Law.